So just continuing on, for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Sharon Jobity. I'm with the Ontario Centres of Excellence, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you our next presentation from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, or NSERC. So here to present is Tibor Turi. And Tibor is the manager of the Ontario Regional Office of NSERC. The regional office mandate is to focus on NSERC's goal to connect and apply the strengths of the academic research system to build prosperity for Canada. These offices build awareness within the private sector, they increase the number of academic industry partnerships, and they increase the participation in NSERC's research partnerships and industrial scholarship programs. If you have any questions, there will be some time, and I just ask if you'd like to just make your way to the podium here so that everybody will be able to hear your questions. Thank you and welcome, Tibor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Normally I get applause at the end, maybe. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of NSERC, talking today about NSERC research partnership opportunities at the kind of a high level, but give you a general idea of what we have to offer. So what we're talking today about in terms of partnerships is innovation. Innovation can be defined many different ways. I like this particular definition by the Conference Board of Canada. I feel it encompasses a lot of the features of innovation. It's a process, so it's not a destination. It's kind of like a street you go down on. So here's Innovation Boulevard, through which economic or social value is extracted from knowledge through creation, diffusion, and transformation of ideas to produce new or improved products, services, or processes. So it's pretty broad. It involves a lot of things, and let's see how we can make that happen. So let's start off by looking at what's happened in Canada, and the best way to gain or gauge how we do with respect to others is perhaps using the OECD countries as a good reference point. There have been a number of really good studies from the OECD. You should go on their website and actually look them up. But here's a few graphs, a couple of graphs I have to sort of illustrate the point. In terms of higher education expenditure on R&D as a percentage of GDP, you can see in this graph of countries, really, Canada's among the top. So we do very, very well in terms of supporting our higher education institutes in our country compared to the rest of the world. The problem is when we look at the business expenditure on R&D in our country compared to the others, we tend to be a little bit, well, quite a bit further behind. And this trend, I know the numbers are a little bit dated, but the trends are exactly the same today as they were. And the concern continues. In fact, it's elevated because the trend has been getting a little bit on the worst side. So what is it that NSERC, keeping this in mind, what is it that NSERC has had strategized to actually make an impact on this? That's what we're going to talk about. Of course, you can plot all of these indicators and get a fingerprint of a country's performance. And here's a good one. The dotted line represents the average of the OECD countries against a whole bunch of different metrics, patents, share of services in business R&D, all kinds of different things. You can see we do well in some areas and not so well in others. The arrows point out those that we are concerned with here today. So let's look at the general structure of government in Canada. How is it that we can affect this change from the top down? So in this science and technology structure, which summarizes how everything fits together, from Parliament, you have the Prime Minister, who has a cabinet. The cabinet has a Minister of Industry and a Minister of State, Science and Technology. That Minister of State Science and Technology has three main streams listed there. The first one, research funding. NSERC is highlighted in red. So you have a number of funding agencies, including the Canada Foundation for Innovation, the CFI, and Genome Canada, which are act somewhat like agencies. Basically, all of those contribute funding directly to post-secondary research in universities, colleges, teaching hospitals. So that's that channel. The other channel, another channel, is research funding through the National Research Council's Industrial Research Assistance Program, or IRAP. the SHRED tax credits. We just heard a presentation on SHRED, and that provides benefits directly to industry. A third arm is basically the NRC National Lab System, Environment Canada, Natural Resources Canada, Health Canada. So those are the three main arms that provide benefit to Canadians. Looking back up over to Minister of Industry, we have something called the Science, Technology and Innovation Council. This council puts out reports. They're available, made available to the Cabinet through the Minister of Industry, and that's how they gather and accumulate and get various ideas to make policy with. So that's how the pieces fit together. It's helpful to keep that in mind when we look at things. So let's look specifically at the three main funding agencies, the Tri-Council and NSERC as part of that. Traditionally, more than 20 years ago, they acted more or less independently, something like silos, people might call them, basically not really interacting as much. Today, it's a different story. It's all about interacting. It's all about collaborating. It's all about working together, even at the agency level, especially at the agency level, because even the subject matter and the research that's being done has drastically changed. There's a lot more interaction between the traditional disciplines than there's ever been. How do we pry this apart? How do we know who to go to for funding? Well, fortunately, there's something called science.gc.ca. Please go there if you have any question about where you fall, because let's face it, funding agencies are created by acts of parliament. It's more or less fixed. Our boundaries are fixed. We can't really be flexible on those boundaries. It's up to us to determine where do you fall. Do you fall within the NSERC realm of possible funding, or do you fall with CIHR, let's say? So it's a very good resource. We use it all the time. If you have any question about it, about that kind of a project, this is the place to go. Okay, NSERC organization quickly, about 370 staff, most of which are headquartered in Ottawa, but there is a system of 5 regional offices. So I head up the Ontario regional office. Ontario has approximately 40% of the activity of research funding that NSERC provides. So it's a fairly significant part of what we do. Our national budget total budget is $1.1 billion or so in 3 main categories. The cornerstone of what NSERC does is discovery-based research. That's curiosity-based, fundamental stuff that's not been discovered, not been looked at. It's something brand new. We also support people, indicated in blue, and innovation is what we're going to talk about today, and that's 31.5% of the pie as you see it there. It goes towards that. So we have a number of different strategic areas, we call them. And they're grouped in strategic areas over strategic periods of a number of years. There's 4 of them here: environment, science, technologies, natural resources and energy, information communications, technologies, manufacturing. We shouldn't be distressed if we don't see our specific topic area up here. We do invite all kinds of applications from all areas. This is a way, however, to organize the various areas that do exist out there and that are participating. Our programs, in a nutshell, are here. We have 5 main programs with a number of grants under each. So strategic partnership, industry-driven, collaborative R&D, which is what we're going to talk about. That's on the university side, indicated in blue. We just have a couple of commercialization grants to offer. We have some training in industry. But not to be forgotten, we have a considerable offering to colleges now, something relatively new to NSERC. So we're going to talk about the 2 items in blue as they apply to companies most. And let's get started right after showing you this slide that gives it a little bit of a different perspective, puts all of the 5 programs on a plot on a scale from research, pure research, to just before pre-commercialization development, and complexity in terms of size, in terms of time that you would spend. So what we're trying to do is cover as much of the area as possible with what we have to offer at NSERC. So if we look at our innovation portfolio, one of the things that's very common is the project. It's in the center of your picture, and the project is the focus of what we do. Whenever industry and academia come together, there's various benefits, cross benefits arising from that partnership. If that project comes out of that partnership, NSERC can come to the table, and sometimes we can leverage, depending on the particular grant you're talking about, up to 2 to 1 on the activity, on the cash that's being laid down towards that project from the industry partner. So it's a little bit complicated. I like things simple. The three-legged stool does just as well when you think about it. Applicant, company, and project. These are the basic things we look at in terms of key evaluation criteria. So let's get right into it. If you have never been in a research relationship with a particular researcher at a university, the Engage grant is a popular choice. It provides you with $25,000 towards your project with that particular research expert at that university for 6 months. It's intended to give you a flavor of working together. It's not a long-term commitment. You want to establish that relationship first before you feel comfortable, perhaps, before you head out and do something much more dedicated, greater commitment over a longer period of time. So no application deadline for this. It's been very, very popular at bringing companies to NSERC that otherwise may not have even thought of us as a potential resource for their innovation needs. After the Engage grant, if you want to continue that very same project, there's an opportunity to do so with one-to-one leveraging. So if you put down as a company $12.5K, NSERC would also put down $12.5K in an Engage Plus grant. And same good conditions apply. And as with the Engage grant, whatever comes out of the research belongs to the company. So the IP belongs to the company. And that's usable right away, hopefully for a good commercial end in the near or medium term. And we have very good turnaround, 4 to 6 weeks we've been maintaining throughout. Our growth in the Engage grant program as a whole has been roughly 30% per year. So it's been very, very positive throughout the country. On the college side, we have a grant that's exactly analogous to Engage. It's called the ARD grant, the Applied Research and Development Grant, and it comes in 3 different types. Level 1 is just like your Engage. It's the first-time introductory relationship builder. When you have your very first project with your college of choice, the ARD1 gives you $25,000 without any cash requirement from the company. So that's been a really popular choice to proceed. And same good conditions, turnaround is fairly quick, also in a number of weeks. And then there's level 2 and 3. At level 2, up to $75K, we offer leverage of up to 2 to 1 on your cash. So that's also very, very attractive to help you move your innovation needs ahead with a college. And college work, I should probably reiterate, is different from university work. University work, you're creating new knowledge. In a college scenario, you're applying knowledge that exists to a specific company-specific problem that you have. So you would be adapting something, you would be making something, you would be using the facilities at the college in order to help you manifest something that would be of an innovation benefit to you. So the character is quite different than an Engage grant where you're trying to discover the mechanism, understand the reason why something is happening. Okay, now at a university, once you have decided, yes, we want to do a longer term commitment, I should bring your attention to the CRD, the Collaborative Research and Development grant has been very popular since practically day one at NSERC. It's been around a long time, and the reason why it continues to be around is it's very flexible, 1 to 5 years. It can be anywhere from fundamental research, something that is company driven, all the way through to pre-commercialization. It's very broad. Basically, define it together with your academic researcher, and you can get a lot of mileage, a lot of work done together in this longer term fashion, the CRD. And finally, industrial scholarships. Everyone's heard of academic scholarships. You do well in school, you're rewarded. Well, here's a way to actually go to work for a company while you're still at school, whether you're an undergrad or a master's or a PhD. And as a company, this is great because you get to witness actually the work that these candidates are doing and potentially sort of do a long-term interview with them over a period of weeks that they're there. So they would spend time, students actually spend time right at your facility working on projects, on whatever it is that you want them to do, and you can evaluate them directly. And anecdotally, about 2/3 of the cases, those students end up being hired on. So it's been a very good program to introduce new talent, highly qualified personnel to companies. And the award rate there is 90%, so it's been very successful in that sense as well. And that's the complete presentation for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any regarding research opportunities at NSERC. Thank you. Yes.
The 2014 federal budget, the role of NSERC, the mandate change with regards to fellowships in industry, sponsored fellowships. Can you comment on how NSERC is managing that transition?
Okay, so the question is, there was a change in the budget that applied to NSERC and had to do with fellowships. There's one fellowship that was drawn into that, and that was the Industrial Research and Development Fellowship, and that was a postdoc position. So someone with a PhD doing a postdoc position with a certain amount of dedicated time at a company. So what the government decided to do was to take that program out of our portfolio, and as far as the transition is concerned, basically we simply handed over that funding money back to the government. We're not going to be continuing that program beyond, I believe it's June. So basically we're sunsetting it, we're phasing it out as the final applications come through. We will honor the ones that are in the system, but up until the cutoff date is all we can do. And beyond that, we don't have that program any longer. Evgenia.
Is this program will be run by someone else that is similar?
Well,
Could you just repeat the questions?
right. The question is, will this program be around in another form with another agency or another organization? To my knowledge, no. There are already some programs existing out there. They're similar, perhaps, but not exactly with the same kind of terms and I think benefits that the IRDF had. But it will be up to everyone who is looking for that kind of program to see what options are available and see which one might be the best fit of the remaining ones. Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. We're getting close to the afternoon, but welcome everybody. And I guess as we start here, we'll have more people joining us. So for those of you who are here with us this morning, I'd like to introduce you to and welcome you to the Innovation Partners Theatre. And my name is Sharon Jobity. I am the Vice President of Human Resources with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. So welcome to Discovery this morning. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our next Innovation Partner presentation from the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, or CIPO. Here to present is Dumitru Olariu. Dumitru is the Business Development Officer at CIPO, and CIPO is a special operating agency associated with Industry Canada and is responsible for the administration and processing of the greater part of intellectual property here in Canada. If you have any questions, we do have a mic, so if there's questions after the presentation, Dumitru will be happy to answer. So I want to welcome Dumitru.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak on behalf of Canadian Intellectual Property Office. We call it in short CIPO. And one of the CIPO's goal is to provide at least awareness about intellectual property and enough knowledge to the future entrepreneurs to make informed business decisions when it comes to intellectual property and take advantage of the intellectual property system. Our presentations will cover the value of intellectual property as it's for small businesses and entrepreneurs. We will overview the main types of intellectual property in Canada. Then we'll talk about an initiative CIPO started about reaching out at university and college students and instill knowledge about intellectual property. And we'll actually overview an intellectual property case study that was developed by CIPO for this initiative. What is intellectual property? Intellectual property deals with the creations of the mind, and might be an invention, might be a logo, might be a literary work. All these creations might be followed by some sort of an intellectual property right. Basically, you find the creations from the field of science and technology, from branding, or from cultural field, or simply shapes ornamentation of the products. We'll review the main types of intellectual property in Canada, and we'll start actually with trade secrets. Trade secret is any kind of information that you can have in your business and may be kept confidential, secret, and gives you a competitive advantage. As an example, might be a product or a process related information, might be a list of buyers, a business plan. All this will give you a competitive advantage and may be considered confidential, secret. It's considered trade secret. The way to protect it is by way of confidentiality agreement. And the protection may last forever or as long as the trade secret is kept confidential. When it's disclosed, the protection ends. That's in brief trade secrets. Also, you have creations from the field of science and technology, as I said, inventions, and they may be protected by patents. The patent is a grant of Government of Canada that in return for disclosing an invention, you may obtain an exclusive right to make, use, or sell what is claimed as your invention for a period of up to 20 years. Patents are territorial, and the subject matter may be a product, a process, a machine, a composition of matter. Again, it has to be new, useful, and ingenious in order to qualify it to be a patent. Other form of intellectual property, quite popular, trademarks, deals with creation belonging to branding, and maybe any word, design, even sounds right now, a combination of this that identify products and services of different persons. I will give you an example later on, but you're probably familiar with many trademarks, famous trademarks like Coca-Cola, Pepsi. They both point to the person or the company providing that service, and they are very powerful forms of intellectual property because people buy products and services based on the reputation of a particular brand. Other forms of intellectual property popular in Canada, trademarks, by the way, they may be registered. You have basic protection without registration, and if you register, the protection lasts for 15 years and may be renewed indefinitely each 15 years. So let's go back to industrial design. Industrial designs deal with just the visual aspect of a manufactured article. Might be the shape, ornamentation, pattern. You have an obligation to file such an industrial design application in order to get protection, and the protection lasts for up to 10 years in Canada. The industrial designs are territorial as patents and trademarks. So in each country you are looking for protection, you should obtain that particular country industrial design. Copyright is probably an exception. It deals with creations from the cultural field, might be literary, dramatic, musical, artistic work, and it's the right to produce and reproduce such work. It's an exception, I said, because the protection is considered international. Canada is a member of major copyright international conventions. The protection lasts usually for the life of the author plus 50 years with a lot of exceptions. This is examples of intellectual property. So here you have an example of a patent that covers the functional features of that particular product. The iPod is the brand, the name, the identifier of that product, and the industrial designs covers just the visual aspect of the product. IP is valuable for small businesses and entrepreneurs first because you get that monopoly. You are able to stop someone of making, using, or selling what you have as protection, as creation for a period of time. So it gives you that competitive advantage, and it's a valuable asset that may be sold, traded. In many situations, it's even more valuable than the physical assets of a company, this intellectual property asset. In intellectual property databases, you have valuable information. You may search them online. You may find information, legal information, find out if you are infringing or not in someone else's intellectual property rights. You may also see what the others are doing, your competition, so it's very useful business information. And in patent documents and the industrial design documents, you also find very valuable, useful scientific and technological information. How CIPO tries to build knowledge about, for Canada's future entrepreneurs, one of the initiatives is called intellectual property case studies. We did an environmental scan and we realized that intellectual property is not yet as much as it could be in the curricula of colleges and universities. So we come with some sort of teaching tool that would be useful for them. So we launch an intellectual property case study program initiatives, and this initiative is free of charge for professors to use. How it works, they order all case studies, and we performed so far 300 such case studies across the country. So the program is quite successful. The delivery model is that the professors simply go on our website, see a summaries of 8 case studies, and they decide what they want to have. We provide them with discussion leader guides or all the information they need, and also we may send someone to conduct the discussion in class if they are not familiar, the professors are not familiar with the intellectual property issue. That's the delivery model. We also may supply a so-called intellectual property bank of speakers presentations, a brief overview of different forms of intellectual property for students as they prepare for the case study discussion. One of the case study that I will briefly mention here is one that is very popular. John Thompson covers all these issues in intellectual property, trade secrets versus patents, non-disclosure, plus some issues relating to the commercializations of inventions. The case study in itself is like an interesting story about someone dealing with intellectual property. John Thompson is an entrepreneur. He has a successful business, but he invents a sorting machine for glass. So because it's an invention, he doesn't know how to go about it. So he goes to the former college and asks someone for help. And all these issues, considering how to protect the invention, the branding, how to commercialize that, they come up, and students found interesting and discuss about that. Sorry. In conclusion, I hope I conveyed enough that intellectual property is a valuable business asset, especially when it's used strategically by companies along with other assets of the company. Knowing about intellectual property will help you avoid costly mistakes and also making very informed business decisions. And CIPO is working with colleges and universities just to instill intellectual property awareness and the knowledge for future entrepreneurs. All these CIPO outreach initiatives are free of charge. Besides that, you have a bank of speakers, as I mentioned, for seminars. We also have a web-based tool, IP for exporting businesses. And we can provide even one-on-one IP consultation service. So the business development officers listed here, they can organize a teleconference and a web conference in the same time, and they may provide one-on-one consultation based on the needs of intellectual property of a particular individual or company. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Good morning and welcome to the Innovation Partners Theater and Presentations this morning. For those of you just joining us, my name is Sharon Jobity and I'm the Vice President of Human Resources with the Ontario Centres of Excellence. And it's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you our next Innovation Partner presentation from the Strategic Initiatives Unit of the Federal Economic Development Initiative for Northern Ontario, or FedNor. A lot of the presenters this morning, I find it's quite a mouthful to say, so just bear with me. Here to present is Jane Karhi. Jane is the manager of Strategic Initiatives of the Strategic Initiatives Unit at FedNor, and FedNor is the Government of Canada's economic development organization for Northern Ontario. Through its programs and services, and through its financial support of projects that lead to job creation and economic growth, FedNor works with businesses and community partners to build a stronger Northern Ontario. Please join me in welcoming Jane. And if you have any questions, we have a mic for questions after the presentation. Thank you.
So thank you very much, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm really glad to see some people in the room. There's lots of choice during OC, and so I'm pleased that you're here. So we're just going to get started. And what I'm going to talk about today is looking at sort of a Northern Ontario overview, because a lot of you are from the Toronto area. And, Northern Ontario, well, many have traveled there, but not everyone, right? So I wanted to provide a bit of background. As well, talk about FedNor's mandate, and then talk about our flagship program, the Northern Ontario Development Program, and looking at it from a standpoint of businesses, what's available for businesses, what's available for community-based organizations, not-for-profit organizations, and some things to think about. And I want to close on a really positive note to say that innovation is thriving in Northern Ontario. Northern Ontario, we cover a real vast geography, right? We have a population that the majority, over 50%, live in 5 major centers across the north. It's home for only 6.5% of the province population, but it represents 90% of the land mass. So you can see we have our challenges of distance. We also have the largest Aboriginal population in the province, represented at 40%. And then, of course, we have a strong Francophone population as well. Currently, there's over 350,000 jobs, but because we rely on a kind of resource-based economy, we find that, jobs are taken away in the, slower economic times, and then they increase in the boom times. Our key sectors are obviously mining, and mining is thriving, and there is considerable exploration interest in minerals across the north, particularly the chromite, diamonds, platinum, etc. We also experienced between 2003 and 2010 a severe economic downturn in the forestry sector, but we're starting to see some recovery. We shed over 10,000 jobs in Northern Ontario. And lastly, in terms of the tourism sector, because we have a great nature-based product, we find that tourism is a mainstay as well in Northern Ontario, but we also get impacted by fluctuating exchange rates as well as the passport requirements that travel between Canada and the US, as well as we all know those great gas prices. So that, going back to our large land mass, you can see that gas and travel expenses is very it significantly impacts movement and the cost of doing business. So the reason I did these slides was because we are very resilient in the north, and innovation does prosper when your economy is stressed and when you have to make the best out of difficult situations. We have a survival mentality, and through survival you get innovation. And so we have opportunities. We have a very much thriving and strengthening innovation ecosystem. We also have some mine automation ongoing, robotics, security and safety, environmental type innovation. And then everybody's heard about the Ring of Fire, which is the largest chromite deposit in Northern Ontario. It's at the early stages of development, but we know that it has significant economic opportunity, not only for Northern Ontario, but for Ontario overall and for our country. And so FedNor is leading the charge there with the federal government in terms of bringing all the different departments that have a stake in the development together at the table to talk about opportunities and how we can move forward in a thoughtful manner, because we have to talk about roads that are going to access the chromite deposit. We have to talk about rail, talk about broadband, etc. As well, we also have made great strides in information and communication technology. We have a strong network of organizations that support that, and as well value processing or value-added processing. So FedNor's mandate, it's very simple. We're really about economic development. We're about job creation. We're about strong, growing communities, reliant communities in Northern Ontario, obviously. And programs that we deliver are the Northern Ontario Development Program, of which I'll talk about momentarily. The Community Futures Program, which is a national program, and there's 24 community futures in Northern Ontario of which we deliver that program. And then the Economic Development Initiative, which is another national program, which is looking at supporting economic projects for official language minority communities to foster growth. The last item there is the outreach and collaboration. That's really important because FedNor is seen as the voice, the federal voice on the ground in Northern Ontario. We try to bring our partners like NSERC, other partners, IRAP, to Northern Ontario, try to connect them to our Northerners, to the businesses, to the colleges, to the universities, so that they can take advantage of those programs. Under the Northern Ontario Development Program, of which I want to talk about here today, we have three main priorities. The Community Economic Development Priority, and briefly that's about supporting infrastructure investment in waterfront development, downtown diversification, revitalization. The other two, though, really focus on that innovation, being innovation as one priority and business growth and competitiveness as a second priority. We provide project-based funding to small and medium-sized enterprises, so that's less than 500, as well as industry and business associations, not-for-profit organizations, post-secondary institutions, and of course municipalities, First Nations. In our project-based funding, we provide up to 50% of eligible costs for non-capital expenses and 33% for capital expenses, so that's when we're talking about equipment. We take the form of both non-repayable contributions as well as repayable. So it really depends on the specific program that is of interest. So for small and medium-sized enterprises, we're looking at supporting projects for applied R&D and innovation. It's really about commercialization of new technologies. And so we'll support activities such as a proof of concept, engineering design, or product testing, or patents, etc. And also, it's about knowledge transfer, where we're trying to have linkages between the post-secondary institutions, the colleges and the universities, as well as the innovation centers across the north, and businesses. So projects can take the form of how do we connect and bring people, innovators together. And also we have productivity improvements as one of our goals, and that's all about increasing global competitiveness. We also provide youth internships to SMEs, 50% of costs up to $31,500 for a 12-month intern. The next one is just about the Targeted Manufacturing Initiative for Northern Ontario that was just recently released in October. It's focusing on manufacturers in the north and how there's two components. One, the operational assessment component, which provides up to $15,000 to look at what you're doing in terms of process flow, quality, how you can improve it, as well as productivity improvement. And that's when you can purchase new equipment that's going to increase your productivity. In terms of not-for-profit organizations, we're looking at strengthening the community innovation ecosystem, right? And we have the regional innovation centers in Northern Ontario, which are very important. And again, it's about providing post-secondary institutions the equipment, for example, to train and then also give access to businesses who are not in a position to purchase that equipment, as well as developing, promoting, and expanding business associations. Again, we'll support youth internships for this group. The bottom line, though, in terms of project considerations, we got to really think about the net economic benefit to Northern Ontario. We can't be supporting basic research. It's all about commercialization. We want to see growing SMEs. We want to see the increased competitiveness. We want to align with community priorities, and we want to make sure our assistance for a project is necessary and needed. As well, we don't want to replace other programs. So if NSERC is well positioned for a program, we want that program to be accessed before they come to FedNor. And of course, all our funding leverages opportunities from other sources, from other government programs, both provincially and federally, as well as the applicant itself. So the last slide really is about innovation thriving in Northern Ontario. We're really pleased to support a project that brought 27 companies here to Discovery this year. 27 companies, and if you haven't gone over to the Northern Pavilion, please do so. Because going back to that very first slide that you saw, we have a huge landmass. It's really tough for businesses to get to places where they can meet people and connect with others of like-minded or opportunities for accessing capital, etc. So we've brought them down here so that they can make those connections. And so that's a really good news story, and we hope to continue that relationship with our innovation centers and the businesses. We also have a Sudbury mining tech cluster, and that's really important because we've got, one of our strengths is mining, and there's a lot of things that are happening in that area. Thunder Bay, life science, the health cluster. Right now they're looking at the Thunder Bay Regional Research Institute producing early stage commercial results for mammographic imaging enhancement. So this is really good news. We also have the cyclotron that has just being built in Thunder Bay, and this is one of 15 in a national network, and they're capable of producing radioisotopes and used in about 80% of diagnostic imaging procedures. So that's a really good news story. We have a really strong network of regional innovation centers where we had 4, but now we have 5. Timmins has come on board, so that's excellent. And they really reach out and work with smaller companies, those small startups, and provide accelerators and incubation type services to those people. We support, like I said, the private sector companies, Penguin Automated Systems. This particular group is developing remote operated vehicles that can go down into mining areas that are unsafe so that they can, make changes and test understand the problem much better, as well as they're also now applying it to municipal sewer systems. So that's also a very interesting, groundbreaking innovation. The Canadore College iCamp, which is iCamp Innovation Center of Advanced Manufacturing and Production, which is also down in the Northern Pavilion. They have a 3D printer that's available for SMEs. And lastly, we have the SEMI, which is the Center of Excellence for Mining and Innovation. And they've been recently awarded $15 million for the Ultra Deep Mining Network, which is the the NC Network of Canadian Excellence. So this is really excellent because we've got lots going on in Northern Ontario. So that's just a real snapshot. But Northern Ontario is there with the rest of Ontario. We're moving forward. FedNor, as the federal economic development agency on the ground, is working with stakeholders, helping develop projects, looking for opportunities, and trying to at least make those linkages for the North to prosper. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to share that with you today. I don't know if there's any questions, but if there is, please don't hesitate.
Thanks very much. Can you explain how you dovetail your programs with those of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation?
Say that.
Can you explain how your programs are dovetailed or separated from
Yeah.
the programs of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund?
It's a very good question because when I talked about our funding, we usually provide only up to 50% of the non-capital costs, 33% of the capital costs. So often, many of the projects are jointly funded with the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, which is really a kind of a good story because it's a funding partnership. We both come to the table, we both support it, and we both reap the benefits for Northern Ontario. So it's a very kind of a collaborative relationship. There's projects sometimes, though, that the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund supports that we do not, and vice versa. Or we often have, while our guidelines are similar, there's some distinct differences.
You don't have a maximum amount beyond which you won't accept any further funding? Typically with federal programs, it's 50%.
Yeah, the maximum amount depends on the program. Sometimes it's up to 500,000, sometimes it's up to 5 million.
Percentages.
In percentages?
Do you have a max that you will?
Well, in some cases, for First Nation communities and in municipalities that sometimes as well will go up to 90%. But we always, at the bottom line though, is we want to see 10% from the applicant.
As a minimum.
As a minimum. But there is exceptions like everything. So these are all sort of general guidelines. So it really depends on the particular project on hand and the problem that, that project is intended to solve. Anything else? Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.